Hello, everybody. Sorry about this delay, y'all. Technology is crazy. Um, yeah, so my screen is still glitching. I don't know if it's glitching for y'all, but it's been doing that kind of off and on throughout the day. So I don't know how this is showing up. And hello, mother. I see you were waiting on me. So, um, welcome to another episode of Live Intentionally Today, live right here on Facebook and on YouTube. So, thank you for joining us tonight. It is still Mental Health Awareness Month. And since we are behind, I'm going to jump right on into it because, yes, it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we got one more week of Mental Health Awareness Month. And so, I am going to continue on with our series here talking about different types of mental health disorders and diagnoses. So tonight we're talking about eating disorders. Um, I this has been coming up for me a lot lately because I've had several random not related situations that have been talking about eating disorders. So I was like, you know what? Let's do an episode. So um most recently I did get contacted, um and shout out to Morgan. She's my new office manager. So yeah, I someone contacted and asking if we treated eating disorders. However, I do not specialize in eating disorders, but sometimes eating disorders can be related to trauma experiences that you have had. And um I know I only see like a couple people on. So can you just tell me if y'all can hear me at all? Hey Michelle, I see you made it. I'm glad you made it. I hope you have a safe travel. But just let me know if you can hear me and see me okay. Just because, yeah, the screen is kind of weird. And so I'm having to pull up, thank God for technology because I got a tablet right here. So I'm glad that I'm able to pull up my tablet as well. So just let me know if you can hear and see me. Ah, okay, so you can hear me. so, um, but yes, so eating disorders are, they statistically, it says that there's only about 5% of the population that are affected by eating disorders. So that's good to know that it's not like everybody is being impacted, like there's so many people. But the ones, people that are being impacted is still a very dangerous, a very, very dangerous thing. And before I forget, I am going to go ahead and put the number for the National Eating Disorder Hotline into the chat, as well as a number that you can text if you are in crisis, because their helpline is not available all day, every day. So it's not a 24-hour type of service, but their text line is. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat real quick. Yeah. So hopefully you guys can see that. And it went, and I can't even hardly see your comments, but I see you say 10 to 4 something, Michelle. 10 to 4. 10-4 on both. Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, I'm so sorry, y'all. My screen is really jacked up right now. But so yeah, this eating disorders only affects about 5% of the population, which is good to know that it's not like a lot of people. But again, remember how I feel about statistics. These are just the ones that are reported that we know about. So people could be possibly and after after we hear about more about eating disorders, you may realize that you might have an eating disorder, or someone that you know and love may have an eating disorder, because there's statistics can only tell us what's reported. And so there's probably some things that you or someone is doing that just hasn't been reported because we're not counting it as an eating disorder, right? um so anyway, Eating disorders are a mental illness. They are also behavioral conditions, and it's characterized by severe and persistent disturbance in eating behaviors, usually associated with distressing thoughts and emotions. So, have you ever been just like, and okay, let me back up a little bit. I know that in the description, I had talked about how eating is such a part of our culture. I know many different cultures, not just American culture. It's in many parts of the world we eat to celebrate. For everything, right? So eating is such a big part of our life. And I put on there from the birth of a baby to the death of a loved one, we are going to celebrate with food. We're going to bring food. Um, I just went with my family. We had graduation parties, and there was lots and lots of food, right? So, food brings people closer together. And so sometimes when we have thoughts about this food, we we can start to have different things. And I'm going to talk about one of these later, which is ruminating. And so we can be so obsessed with food either as we enjoy it and overeat and be gluttonous with it, or that it impairs us in such a way, which many of these eating disorders, what that's what I'm going to be talking about, how it impairs us to where it becomes a mental health issue, because we do so many things to try to restrict our diet or restrict the weight that we gain. Okay. And so some of the problems with and the challenges with eating disorders is that they can be very serious conditions causing not only mental health problems but also physical problems. And they can affect us psychologically, mentally and socially with our friends, right? Because when you really just think about it, in a nutshell, um if I have an eating disorder, right, it's going to affect me socially because I don't want to go around people so that they can see things or pick up on things that I may be doing that are not healthy, right? Or I also may start to isolate myself from, socially then, or around my family, and becoming more secretive, which also causes anxiety for me, right? Another mental health issue is because I have the anxiety because I don't want people to see me. I'm embarrassed or whatever that looks like, right? So, so just know that it can affect us in multiple facets of our life. Okay, so some of the eating disorders are anorexia nervosa. That's the clinical name for it, which you probably heard in short, just anorexia. But then it's broken down into two other subcategories, which I'll go over. Also, bulimia, which is the other more popular one that we've heard of. And then there's binge eating disorder, avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, also known as AFRID, um, and then just some other like specified feeding and eating disorders such as pica and rumination. And those may not be as, you may know what they are, but you don't know what their clinical terms are. So again, like I said, this affects about 5% of the population. More commonly, it reports that women ages 12 to 35 are the most often ones affected. And with those being, you know, a more popular one, I don't like to say popular, but the more known of them being anorexia and bulimia. And so I also want you to know that these eating disorders also can co-occur, meaning they come along with other types of disorders that are psychiatric disorders, such as mood and anxiety disorders, which I kind of talked about, obsessive compulsive disorders, which we have not talked about really, but just being obsessive and compulsive about different things. Maybe you have to eat a certain way at a certain time, things like that, or you can only eat certain things, so it can also go along with obsessive compulsive disorder and as well as alcohol and substance use disorders. Okay. There is some evidence that suggests that genes and and I'm not going to try to say this word, heritability. I said it. Okay. So that genes and heritability also can play a part in why some people are more at risk than others for eating disorders. And now I also want to tell you that some of this stuff, comes from family history and things like that. And so some of our genes, when you just think about it, some of our genes, some of us are a little more predisposed to being a little heavier weight anyway, just because of our bone structure and things like that. And so sometimes eating disorders come, we have like body dysmorphic type of issues as well. And when I say body dysmorphic type of issues, I'm saying it's hard for me to look at myself in the mirror because what I see is like a fat blob or something. And I could be like 100 pounds soaking wet. So when you think about that, that's kind of my like summary of like body dysmorphic issues. Like, we see ourselves in such a way that is displeasing to us. Okay. So just think about that. Genetically, some of us are just big boned, we just big boned out there. And so some of that plays a part and we're dissatisfied with that. And so we try to alter that or alter our bodies in many kind of ways that are not healthy. Okay. And so some of these I want to talk about. Now I'm going to go into them like anorexia nervosa, right? It's it's characterized by self-starvation and weight loss, and it results in a low weight for your height and age. And so truthfully, when I'm saying I'm saying like the studies and research that have been done. Anorexia has the highest mortality of any psychiatric condition. So that is kind of crazy because it even says that um other than opioid. So it's like that's crazy because with all this opioid stuff going on with people overdosing and like the fentanyl and things like that, that's like the highest mortality rate right now because people die pretty instantly. And so for anorexia to be the next highest psychiatric diagnosis with mortality rate, wow. um and so basically, your body mass index for anorexia, it says that it's typically under 18.5 in an adult. That's really small. That's like no body fat at all on you, right? So the dieting behavior in anorexia is driven by an intense fear of gaining weight. So you don't want to have any weight on you. So you want to just, like in your mind, you are being lean and slim. But sometimes people with severe anorexia, they look really, really sick and they don't recognize it as like they look sick, and what I'm talking about looking sick is like it's just skin and bones. I have seen situations where people do, it's that severe. Okay. Um, so some people also with anorexia nervosa also binge eat. And so because we think commonly that people are just starving themselves, but they're not. They do binge eat, okay? But then they they hurry up and take like they can do what the next one we're going to talk about is bulimia. So they can vomit their food back up or take laxatives or other things to try to flush the food out of their system. Okay, so you may not it doesn't really count as being bulimic, and I don't want to say bulimic, but having bulimia because you're not doing it regularly. It's more or less like you're just doing it to flush it out, flush the food out of your system. So you'll eat and you eat a lot. And so people wouldn't even suspect it, but then you start taking laxatives or just whatever that you can to flush food out of your system. And so the two subtypes are restricting type And that's where individuals lose weight primarily by dieting, fasting, or excessively exercising. Okay, so they want to, um, like, you really limit your calorie intake and things like that. And and so this is where I'm going to talk about. Remember how I talked about having some obsessive compulsive behaviors, excuse me, as well? That's when you can become obsessive with like exercising or dieting or the counting the calories and just having that restrictive eating. Okay. So that's where the obsessive part can come in. And then the other part is binge eating and purging. And that's kind of what I was just talking about at the end, where people get engage in intermittent binging. Okay. And that's so you binge, you eat a whole bunch of food, and then you purge it in some kind of way. So it comes in and it goes out. All right. So those are the two types of subtypes of anorexia. And then over time, it says that people can get symptoms related to starvation or purging. And so well, I'll go into that in a minute. So some of those are menstrual periods can stop completely. So they just cease. There could be dizziness or fainting from dehydration, brittle hair and nails, cold intolerance, muscle weakness and wasting, heartburn, and acid reflux. And that's primarily for those people that vomit, okay? Severe constipation, bloating, and fullness after meals, stress fractures, and it says stress fractures from compulsive exercise as well as bone loss, resulting in osteopenia or osteoporosis, meaning that you have thinning bones. It's thinning of the bones. And so when you think about that, you're not getting enough nutrition so that your bones aren't growing, and then they're not getting that calcium and all the stuff that bones need to be strong. So then that's why your bones become brittle. And you can also see it in like your fingernails, that your fingernails are brittle, like I was saying. And then also, here goes the other mental health concerns: depression, irritability, anxiety, poor concentration, and fatigue. So you're not able to focus well, you're down, miserable, all of that kind of stuff. You have the anxiety that we spoke about before of going around people. Maybe somebody might find out. Okay. Remember, I said that this anorexia has a high mortality rate. So it is a serious medical condition, and serious complications can be life threatening. Okay. And oh, I want to add this. It says that some of them could be heart rhythm abnormalities, especially in those patients who vomit or use laxatives. You could also have kidney problems and seizures. Okay. So there is treatment. Sometimes with for as far as treatment for anorexia, it's you can do outpatient treatment, but more severe forms of anorexia, people need to do some inpatient treatment and be admitted to the hospital. Okay. And those are usually like some type of residential behavioral program. Okay. And they do need to be specialty types of treatment. So that's why in the beginning I was saying I don't treat that, because it needs to be a more specialized treatment for people. And then also you'll learn about, like, in the treatment they learn about nutrition as well as managing like depression and anxiety, and just in a way just like framing your thoughts about everything. And you have to look at yourself differently. You have to think about food differently. Okay. So the next one I want to talk about is bulimia. It's bulimia nervosa, which is the clinical name for it. So individuals with bulimia typically alternate dieting or eating only low calorie, safe foods with binge eating on forbidden foods. And those forbidden foods would be those with high calories. So um, basically you kind of keep at a low I'm not having a high calorie diet. I'm being very restrictive. And then on the weekend, I am going to ball out and eat McDonald's, Burger King, all of it, right? I'm going to just go get those high calorie things and then go back to, well, then I would like vomit it all up, right? And so it says that binge eating is defined as eating a large amount of food in a short period of time, associated with a sense of loss of control over what or how much one is eating. So there's no control over it. It's just binge. Binge, eat, right? It kind of just like someone that has like an alcohol problem. You know, sometimes you hear about people just binging on alcohol. It's the same thing, like you're just binging on food. And so then that binging behavior is usually secretive and it's associated with feelings of shame and embarrassment. So some of the other things that can help you to be have depressed dep- I can't talk, y'all. Depression type symptoms, okay? Um Binges may be very large and food is often consumed rapidly beyond fullness to the point of nausea and discomfort. So you're just like, just gluttoning, just taking it all in. And so, another fact over here is that binges occur at least weekly and are typically followed by what are called compensatory behaviors to prevent the weight gain. And so that includes fasting, vomiting, laxative misuse, or compulsive exercise, kind of just like with the anorexia. Okay. And let's see. The same kind of things with the anorexia nervosa is the same as bulimia nervosa, that people are excessively preoccupied with the thoughts of food, the weight or shape which negatively affect and disproportionately affect their self-worth. Okay, let's see. It also says that people with bulimia can also be slightly underweight, normal weight, or even just overweight, or even obese, even. And so, if they're significantly underweight, they are considered to have anorexia, binge eating, purging type, not the bulimia. Okay. Then family members or friends may not know that a person has bulimia nervosa because they don't appear underweight, right? So we wouldn't even think that, but because they're being secretive and then they're doing all the things that I just talked about, then that's where you go into that category of being bulimia, but having bulimia. Hey, Alicia. And so some things that you might notice with family members or friends, some signs that they may have bulimia nervosa is frequent trips to the bathroom, right? Especially right after meals, right? Because they got to get it out. So it's, eating, but then they have to purge it. Large amounts of food disappearing or unexplained empty wrappers and food containers. So you see, people sneaking downstairs in the middle of the night, that kind of stuff. Chronic sore throat. And that's where some other physical health things come in, because when you regurgitate, there's even if it's not on purpose. So when you're vomiting and regurgitating, there's acids that come up from your stomach that burn your throat, okay? So that's why you can have a chronic sore throat. You can have swelling of the salivary glands and in the cheeks, dental decay, and that comes from the erosion of the enamel by that stomach acid. So see, that acid's burning all up your throat and in your gums and teeth, okay? Heartburn and acid reflux, laxative or diet pill misuse. So people are constantly taking diet pills or laxatives, trying to get stuff out of their system. Not because like I'm constipated and I need to go to the bathroom, so I take a laxative, but just constantly just trying to poop it out. Okay. Um, there's also recurrent unexplained diarrhea, so constant diarrhea, misuse of diuretics such as water pills, because we often think that is just water weight. It's just water weight. We'll get it off, right? And then also, like in anorexia nervosa, there is feeling dizzy or fainting, and that comes from the excessive purging activity that also results in dehydration. Okay. Now, bulimia can also lead to potentially fatal complications, which include esophageal tears, gastric rupture, and dangerous cardiac arrhythmias. Okay, so medical monitoring in cases of severe bulimia is important to identify and treat any possible complications. So, outpatient therapy, like cognitive behavior therapy, is the strongest type of treatment, but also you may need to go into a residential facility to be able to help help with that. And also, these things don't just affect the individual, but they also affect family members. So these are, we need to, as family members and friends, we also need to be aware of these disorders and things and the symptoms, so that we can help our loved ones. And so they also offer family care for our family, like a family-based treatment. And so then the binge eating disorder, I'm not going to go completely into it because it's kind of like each one is building on the next one. So the binge eating disorder, which I've kind of talked about within the anorexia nervosa, as well as the bulimia nervosa, it's basically you're going to be eating more rapidly than normal, eating until uncomfortably full, eating large amounts of food, even when you don't feel hungry, and then eating alone because of feeling embarrassed by how much one is eating. So, like, again, here comes that isolation and social withdrawal, because you don't want anybody to see how much you're just like cramming, just eating. Okay. And then also feeling disgusted with yourself, depressed, or guilty after a binge. Okay. And so remember that binge eating can also go along with anorexia as well as bulimia. Okay. Some of things that can lead to serious health complications with binge eating disorder are obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and cardiovascular disease. Okay. Um, there are what we call other specified feeding and eating disorders. And those are just kind of ones that don't really fit into the other categories. So I'm not really going to go into that, um, you know, because it's just, I want to focus on the other one. So there's avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, and it's recently defined, so it's not like one that we've been knowing about for very long. But we've had it, but they just defined it. Okay, so it's a defined eating disorder that involves a disturbance in eating, resulting in persistent failure to meet nutritional needs and extreme picky eating. So it's like you only eat certain food, like your diet is so restrictive, like you're not having any dairy, no gluten. The only protein you might eat is plant-based protein, and but then you still have to, it's like no sugar, no dye, so it's all this restrictive type of stuff, and then very picky about it. So in AFRID, as we call ARFID, I'm sorry, in ARFID, as we call it, food avoidance or limited food repertoire can be due to one or more things, such as low appetite and lack of interest in eating or food itself, extreme food avoidance based on sensory characteristics. So because of the texture, how it may look, the color of it, the smell of it, so then you feel sick, to where you don't want to eat. Okay. Anxiety or concerns about consequences of eating, such as fear of choking, nausea, vomiting, constipation, or even allergic reactions. So some of it is just like it's cognitive. So these things may not really happen to you, but you just have that fear of the food, in a sense, fear of eating the food. Okay. Let's see. Some things to look out for are significant weight loss, or your ability to achieve your expected weight gain, like in children. So this is, to me, what comes to my mind right now is, especially with children, so the kids go through things where it's like, I'm not eating vegetables. I'm not eating, I only want macaroni and cheese, I just want chicken nuggets, and they don't want to eat other things because, they're still learning about the texture of food, what they like, what they don't like. Their palate is also changing. So, but I just want you to be aware that this restrictive eating can happen with children, but you need to pay attention to that to make sure that they're hitting their milestone weight gain and growth. Okay. So that's why when you go take your baby to the doctor or your child for their well children's appointments and things like that, that's why they always check their height and weight to make sure they're like growing in comparison to like the average weight and height for their age. All right. Um, let's see. It also, so kind of in line with what I was saying, the food avoidance or restriction commonly develops in infancy or early childhood and may continue into adulthood. So, even though it can start at any age, regardless of the age, just be, cognizant of the things that I've just shared with you. Now, the last two that I'm going to go into real quick, because I know we're over the time, but pica is an eating disorder in which a person repeatedly eats things that are not food with no nutritional value. And I know you might hear of people eating chalk, dirt, just different things like that. So just know that this behavior persists over at least 1 month, and it's severe enough to warrant clinical attention. So it's like just constantly eating eating things that are not food. So typically, some more types of things include that people eat that relate to pica are paper, paint chips, soap, clothing like cloth material, just like biting off their clothes, hair, string. I mentioned chalk already, metal, pebbles like little rock pebbles, charcoal, or even like clay. And so people with pica don't typically have an aversion to food like with the restrictive, ARFID people, the people with ARFID. So they're not really restrictive or have an aversion to food itself. They're not afraid of getting choked up or anything like that. They just eat things that are not food. Okay. And this behavior is inappropriate to the development of the individual and is not part of a culturally supported practice. So I know when my mom was younger, she was saying, and even like here in Georgia and Alabama, people eat like red clay dirt. I don't know that it has any nutritional value. I know that that's what I've heard. I have never tried it myself, but I know that it happens. And so when you think about it, that, and you kind of constantly eat it, it's not really related to anything that culturally or anything like that. Okay. Um, it's also not diagnosed in children under 2 because when you think about it, children eat stuff, they put stuff in their mouth. Okay. So that's a normal part of development. But when it oh yeah, I need to add this. Pica often occurs along with autism spectrum disorder and intellectual disability, but it can occur in otherwise typically developing children. Okay. So if you are around or know children that are on this on the autism spectrum. I really can't talk tonight, y'all. But they're on the mama. I'm sorry, my mama said clay dirt is good. She said it's good. But see, she's not being excessive with it or anything like that, and she's not just always doing it. So I wouldn't say that she has pica, because I don't even know that she got access to some red clay dirt right now. But it can be very dangerous eating substances. Like, think about this. I just said metal. Like, you're eating metal, right? Um, that could potentially cut up your organs and cause internal bleeding. So there's also toxic effects from like paint, and thinking about like lead paint and stuff like that. So just think about all the things that, like, if they tell us that we need to not have lead paint in our home anymore, like, and things like that, if you're ingesting it, what it could cause. So yeah, just be mindful that pica is dangerous and it can cause intestinal blockages. Okay. The last one is rumination disorder, and that is repeated regurgitation and rechewing of food after eating. I'm sorry I'm making this face because I'm just like, I can't imagine like when I vomit, but like let it come up and then eat it again. So, um, I apologize, but yeah, that's what it is. It's repeated regurgitation and rechewing of food after eating, whereby swallowed food is brought back into the mouth voluntarily and is rechewed and reswallowed or spat out. Yeah. So, this rumination disorder can develop in early infancy, childhood, and adolescence, or as well as in adulthood. So, to meet this diagnosis, people, well, it has to occur repeatedly over at least a month period. It's not due to any gastrointestinal problems, so like acid reflux type of thing. So it's not related to any other medical issue. Um, it does not occur as part of any other behavioral eating disorder either. And rumination can also occur in other mental health disorders. So people with intellectual disability, um, it can occur along with that. And but yeah, it also needs to be severe enough to warrant separate clinical attention for the diagnosis to be made. So again, many of these disorders can be treated with outpatient, but like anorexia or bulimia, sometimes it may be so severe that you do need to go to the hospital because it is affecting you health wise, like where you're so underweight and so malnourished. Okay. So you need to be in the hospital to, increase your weight at a good pace. Okay. I know that was a lot. Let me see. Michelle said, I can barely read it, but phew, I'm glad she said that because oh, she's saying she's glad mama said that it was good because she used to eat dirt down in the country too, right? Or eat chalk down home in the country. And so yeah, when you're little, some things are, we don't say that it's a eating disorder because of, it's part of childhood development, you're learning. However, if it becomes persistent and ongoing, and then that's kind of like all you're doing, then yeah, we can definitely, especially like with the pica, we can say that it's just a childhood development type stage, unless it persists or you're not meeting your height and weight kind of according to your growth chart as a child. But yeah, that's very interesting. I'm not set up that way to work with eating disorders, because y'all saw my face as I was talking about just the rumination disorder. But I am, like many of you, more I know more about anorexia and bulimia than I do other eating disorders. But I did want to take this moment and share that with you all, because we can develop eating disorders and not even recognize that we're having one. So if you're, you or someone doing all these yo-yo diets and things like that because of body dysmorphia, like, remember I said that's like not seeing yourself, like having discomfort with the way you look as far as your body, and even if you're at a normal weight. So it's not just like, oh, you're because you really are obese or above your BMI. It's not about that. It's more or less you're doing these things that are uh unsafe. It's best to go to a nutritionist if, excuse me, if you have any kind of concern. It's best to go to a nutritionist or a dietitian, someone professional in the food area, to make sure that you have a a normal weight loss. Because if I remember correctly, and I don't have this right in front of me, but if I remember correctly, it's not like good to lose like 10 pounds a week, right? I think it's like maybe 2 to 5 pounds, and I'm pushing it with saying 5 pounds a week. So when people are just dropping weight so fast, it's not healthy even for your body. So you need to be able to lose weight at a steady pace. Okay, so just be mindful of some of the things, like, like I was saying, taking laxatives, or if you're being secretive, or the person that is being secretive about eating, binging on foods. And you can tell by some of their physical appearances, such as, yes, that the rapid decrease in weight, the brittle nails, brittle bones, all these different things can happen. So I just wanted to bring some awareness to some eating disorders, make you think a little bit about what you might be doing, because I can tell you, and I will be transparent. For a minute there, I was drinking, what is that, tea? It's like a diuretic, not a diuretic, but a laxative type of tea. I forget what it's called, but it was like a little tea. And I remember being in Alaska, and I was drinking this tea, and I didn't know that it was going to make me go to the bathroom like it did. And I was at work like all day, and I was like, yeah, this ain't for me. So just to share that I am, I'm guilty of having some of these types of things as well. And just be mindful. There are healthy ways to do it if you need to lose weight. Um, but be mindful of the eating disorders. So I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over. So I will let y'all go. And coincidentally, I am about to go eat. But I'm always going to go eat right after a podcast. So enjoy your meal. Don't regurgitate it. Don't ruminate on it. And I know I'm saying that jokingly, but I know this is a serious thing. But yeah, just be mindful, take care of yourselves. Again, I put the website for the National Eating Disorder Helpline, and also you can text 74, or I'm sorry, let me say it again. You can text NEDA, that's NEDA, like for the National Eating Disorder Association. You can text those 4 letters to 741-741 if you feel like you are in a crisis, or someone that and it is a 24-hour line that you can text. Okay. And on the website, it also has some chat and text features, as well as the times you can call. Okay. So there's a lot of good information on there. I wish you all a good night, and I will see y'all next week. But don't forget to turn up on Saturday, because it's my birthday. It's my birthday on Saturday. And then, because I love you all, I am giving everybody a national holiday for my birthday. So everybody be off on Monday. Happy Memorial Day. All right. So I will see y'all next Tuesday. And if you have a topic, again, hit me up in the DMs on here on the messaging. If you have my information, you can call me or email me as well. But if you would like a topic to be talked about, holla at me. All right. So it's been real, y'all. Have a great night. And as always, I am here. It is now, is right now. And I am alive, y'all. I am going to have gone around the sun 47 times. Yay. But anyway, have a great night. And Michelle, have a safe trip. And I'll see you when you get back.